Welcome to yet another episode of Ambigramy presents AmbiTalk. Today we are here with some amazing delegates from the tech industry of India, bringing the tech to global level. We are here with representatives of NASSCOM and tech industry representatives. So let's bring them on the camera and let's talk with them about the revolution of tech of India across the globe. We have Mayank Gautam with us today, so let's hear it from him first.
Thanks. Pleasure being here. My name is Mayank Gautam. I represent NASSCOM. NASSCOM, for the uninitiated one, is the trade association from India that focuses purely on the tech industry. We represent roughly around 3,500 member companies with a revenue amounting to around $283 billion annually. It's truly a blue chip industry coming out of India, which is extremely important for the India as a country, and it's been the success of India in recent years actually have been on the backdrop of the tech industry, and US happens to be one of the key market for our industry, which is around 62% of all the revenue numbers that I shared with you earlier. It's an export-driven industry with roughly around 180 billion purely export, and 62% of that is the US. And US-India collaboration on the tech front is extremely important, especially with the advent of AI and some of the other emerging technologies. I think this collaboration requires, a great work. And keeping that in mind, we are here in the US at this current juncture.
Yeah, nice. So bringing all those development that we are doing in India to United States. Of course, United States being one of the powerhouses of tech across the globe. So with you, I'm sure you've brought some industry people as well. So I'd like to also introduce our industry man, Harjeet Gulati.
Hello.
And Maulik Bhansali.
Thank you.
Welcome to the podcast, sir.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
I'd like you to introduce yourself, what brand you represent, and why you are with NASSCOM.
Sure. So my name is Harjeet Gulati. I represent the Cerebrant Group. We have companies based out of India, Singapore, Dubai, UK, and US as well. As part of NASSCOM, we've traveled here a number of times, and we've been meeting the industry leaders from here, a lot of trade representatives. And I believe, as Mayank mentioned, US is pretty much the center point of any new technology initiative that you're talking about. And that's what we are looking to leverage by interacting with the people here, setting up our presence and expanding our presence here. So I primarily have been here for that reason this time around as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
And for you, Maulik, what?
Well, thank you so much for having me here, and great to be part of this NASSCOM delegation as well. I'm Maulik Bhansali, Chief Executive Officer of NetWeb Software. That's the business side of it. However, I also represent small and medium wonderful tech businesses from across the country as the chair of National SME Council of NASSCOM.
Okay.
So great to be here as part of that as well, I would say. As Mike mentioned, we have close to 3,500 members, but of which 80% are small and medium tech businesses. And these are thriving businesses, doing very unique, fantastic work, but then are also looking for global initiatives, global connections, and global collaborations, I would say.
Okay.
And in the times of AI, as we all know, it's anyone's game, right? While a lot of innovation is happening here and back in India as well, but these are the best times for both the countries and both the ecosystems to come together and co-create as well. So therefore, from that point of view as well, Mike, this has been a wonderful, start that, in my honest opinion, and I think we should build more on this and how possibly two ecosystems can really come together and do good work and co-create.
Good. So this one question, I'm going to have two different versions of it, one for the NASSCOM representative and one for the industry. From the NASSCOM perspective, what difference is it bringing to you for this time, like as a delegation to come in 2025, apart from the previous meetings or travels that you have done to the US? What difference it make?
I hope our versions are same and aligned. Otherwise, we would have done a bad job as an industry body. But on a serious note, I think the US, I don't want to lay overemphasis of how important it is. And for someone who's been coming here for a long time, the only thing we've seen evolve is technology name changes. These days it's AI and the other stuff, but the camaraderie and the collaboration angle continues to thrive and is the most important aspect. I mean, it's not hard to say that the bedrock of India-US relationship, if I dare may say, while democracy is the word, but it is tech-driven partnership in this day and age. And the only change I've ever seen is like these technology name changes, but otherwise, everything is the same. There is still that passion between both the ecosystem because there is a bit of India in every US product.
Yeah.
And there is, I would say, every product that you see on the roads, whether from the automobiles made in US or anything, there will be some element of technology touched by the Indian hand in that. So if to give a short answer in this, not any change in that, it's only been getting better. But 2025 has been an interesting year in many ways.
Right.
And the world is going through a sea change, various macro factors. But I think in this day and age, the partnership becomes even more important and relevant for the world, especially on the technology side that US, India are on the same page, which is exactly the way we see it.
Good. So as this Mayank Bhai mentioned, and this question I'd like to address to the industry representatives, that there is an touch of Indian in every product that we see based in the US. And I'm sure you guys have visited to the US before as well. But from my knowledge, that New Jersey is something that you chose for this delegation. So why exactly New Jersey? I know, from a general perspective, we say that New Jersey is like the mini India of United States. But from your perspective, as a tech individual, tech in USA is all known by Silicon Valley. So why do you choose to come to New Jersey, and what brings you here? And did you achieve the goal of what you thought of?
So I think you've hit the nail on the head, really, in terms of New Jersey being the center point. If I look at why did I come to New Jersey, I think there is no better place for us in the tech industry. If you look at the ecosystem, you look at the diaspora that's present here, the kind of support and the initiatives, the academia, the government, and the general support you get in terms of the people around, I think it's been phenomenal. And that's something that we want to leverage while being in New Jersey. So personally, for me, I think New Jersey is a place which brings all of it together like probably no one right now. I mean, California has a Silicon Valley and Texas has a good tech ecosystem. New York has a good ecosystem. But New Jersey, by virtue of its the geographical location, the kind of market access it affords, and the kind of overall ecosystem that it has built, I think it's absolutely great, and that's what we want to leverage.
Agreed. Because I think so far all the industries that we have seen stepping in New Jersey is mainly real estates or food industry or product-based industry. This is the first time that I'm hearing a tech industry coming to New Jersey and showing the interest. So which is great, sir. Your perspective, sir.
I think New Jersey has been a very good thriving ecosystem all along. You talk about any specific industry, but more focused around life sciences, pharma, for example. We heard wonderful stories today, and I know a few wonderful industries and friends over here who have been really doing very, very well. And primarily because of the entrepreneurial spirit, which I see here is unique and outstanding. Secondly, the ecosystem is so very supportive. So, for example, your academias and the Economic Development Authority as well here is very forthcoming and helpful as well. So, in my honest opinion, it has all the ingredients for a business to be successful, and also finding the right talent, looking for right partnership, collaborative opportunities as well we see out here. So, I think it's a great time to be here, and look forward to being here more often.
So, continuing with that answer, I'd like to also ask, what are, if you can point me 5 great opportunities for the industry and NASSCOM to be in New Jersey?
So let me take it, but let me sort of dovetail into the earlier question and answer that we gave. Interestingly, New Jersey happens to have one of the highest concentration of Indian tech companies in the US. In fact, New Jersey is the first port of landing for a lot of our companies.
Correct.
And I'm talking about the big major players from Indian tech. Over the years, what we've seen, as you move from the largest companies to tier 2, tier 3, and now to the SMEs and startups, we've seen a great enthusiasm for companies to be here. And we've also, the same enthusiasm actually has been reciprocated by the state as well. I mean, as NASSCOM, we hosted a couple of times the governor of New Jersey. I remember in 2019 when we actually thought of putting in a business delegation or investment-led delegation, we had close to 40-45 companies from NASSCOM membership that came in, and we were hosted by Governor Phil Murphy himself. And so in that sense, our partnership, especially the NASSCOM partnership with the state, goes a long way back. As I said, largest of our companies, there's global CEOs in some cases are based out of New Jersey as well. Now, I'm not going to say 4 or 5 or any numbers, but the opportunity exists on various fronts. I mean, first of all, New Jersey happens to be in the financial corridor between, let's say, the New England region upwards till Greater New York.
Yes.
I don't know, the numbers would be off by a few trillion, but it's huge financial services market for our companies. And BFSI per se is a very, very important segment for our companies, from the largest to the smallest. So that's a big play. You've got a lot of pharma companies coming in New Jersey and setting up shop, which gives another entry into that. Entertainment industry is also a big one. I remember every time a governor comes to India, he makes sure, I think he travels to Mumbai as well.
Yes.
So you've got entertainment, and these days there's no industry which is left untouched by technology. Right? Technology is everywhere. So we see a lot of green offshoots now with the AI, with deep tech. The state has come out with deep tech funds. So we see a lot of alignment on that front. And it's also a great nearshoring option for a market like New York, right? Where if you're operating from New Jersey, you end up saving a lot on your operational models, but getting the same talent and across some of those things. I think on a larger picture, these are something that's come to my mind. I'm sure my colleagues, would want to chime into something else.
No, totally agree. I think what you mentioned about the fact that there's a lot of, as I said, government support is important. When you build that ecosystem with either it's your policies or the kind of support that you're giving your businesses, I think that's hugely important. Mm-hmm. It's been there at New Jersey. And now the fact that, there is an increasing emphasis on, especially from the India side, for small businesses who are looking more up, outward in terms of, not being in India alone and, spreading out. I think that New Jersey tends to be the first port of call.
Correct.
And that's really something we are seeing in the kind of interactions we are having, mm-hmm. in the collaborative kind of environment that we've kind of experienced. I think it's been amazing.
But I'm sure with these opportunities that you have, there might be some challenges or some misconceptions that the small startups have in India. What kind of challenges are you facing individually? And what do you think, let's say if you put your foot in somebody's shoe who's still in a small business setup in India, what conception would they have that, hey, is there a risk to invest in the US market?
There is always a risk in whatever business activity you do, So it's the risk versus reward really that you evaluate as a business person. Mm-hmm. So if you're running an organization and you've got a certain technology backbone or certain offerings that you believe will add value to your clients, at that point you've got to assess whether I can offer that value, to a customer sitting in the US. And there's a lot of cultural similarity that we see over the years. I mean, if you go to a lot of any other part in the world, for instance, as opposed to coming to the US, there are still some values, some cultural elements that you would instantly bond with. And that's been a great, I think, enabler for Indian businesses to start looking at US and lowering part of that risk. So there's always a risk for sure,
yes.
But being able to manage that, being able to design your service offering, your value offering for your market, I think it's been extremely important. So
I think, especially from a startup point of view, my friend mentioned, I mean, there's always a risk to kind of what you do something or you're set out to do something, right? And especially coming from a startup point of view, I think the go-to-market remains the biggest need of theirs. Right? Having global aspiration, but yet there are challenges. Now, sensitization in terms of what's out there, how one can support, what ecosystem is there around to support you, what are the different ways and means of doing it becomes big, important, for all these startups to know. And therefore, I really appreciate NASSCOM continuing to kind of carry out such delegations to be able to bring such knowledge and such information. And not just being part of such delegations alone, but I think bringing this knowledge back in India is equally very important for all of us. And we're planning to do that as well in terms of how we bring this back in India for larger, community, larger startup founders and entrepreneurs out there to be able to really start thinking differently, start seeing, understanding the ecosystem more better. And I think the better informed they are, the better they'll be able to make their decisions as well. And of course, at some point of time, you have to make a move. But then what that right move is, how do you really plan for it? I think this brings in great value for that.
Okay. I think you heard from both the entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
So for me to tell them what would be right or wrong is like preaching to the choir. But I'll still take the liberty to answer. What we've realized in terms of the challenges that some of the smaller companies or the startup face, the general perception is that the American market is one homogeneous market. That is the biggest challenge. So in my interactions, be it a startup, be it size of an SME company, is that you need to sort of reimagine US in a different lens. Each and every state provides you tremendous opportunity to generate revenues and provide services. But each and every state also brings its own USP. So depending on what your customer is, what are your trying to solve, who is your end user, decides which is the best place for you. New Jersey may offer you great benefits, great diaspora, everything. But if you don't really have your customer base in the state, it doesn't really make difference. So say, for example, if I were a tech company that serves the automotive industry, it makes more sense for me to be in the Midwest. Places like Michigan, Ohio, Illinois. If I am a company that serves the financial services, that it makes me all the sense to be here.
In New York.
If I am someone who works on the healthcare side, maybe the area around North Carolina makes a lot of sense. So getting that clarity, what my expectations are, that is important. B would be, at times we meet with companies, founders of the startups, who can be different party in terms of thinking that, I can do this work in India for X amount. Maybe in US it'll be X plus one. But the fact is, whatever you factor in the cost, you will always overshoot. And we as Indian at times on a lighter note, we tend to underestimate that, we can deal with it, we can manage the cost. But I think these are 2 points if we get relevant. The other points these that as mentioned, risk is always associated with the business. And as an entrepreneur, I think that's the first thing that you deal with. If there was no risk appetite involved with that, I'm sure everyone, including me, would have been an entrepreneur myself rather than sitting and preaching here.
Agreed. It's always called as like jahan risk hai wahan ishq hai.
Exactly. Right? I don't know ishq, but jahan risk hai wahan pe
paisa zarur hai. So let me ask you this: from being a representative of NASSCOM, right? What do you think would help for the industry people, like for the SMEs that are still in India, hasn't been to the US market yet? Of course, the representatives here have already been here, they know the market. But for those, what are your suggestions? How are you helping them to bring their business to the United States? Or I'm sure you might have operations in other countries as well.
Yeah. So keep in mind, unlike goods or commodity services, wherever you need to have some warehouses or you need to have partners sell up your products. Services industry or the tech products don't really need that, right? You'll be surprised there will be people who are running these tech companies in India. Maybe 60, 70, 80% or 90% revenue is coming in from the US, may not have a presence. But where things, and for the longest time, that's how the industry grew. But one big change that we've started witnessing, especially post-pandemic, is companies or the SMEs who are looking to break through the chasm to the next level are actually looking to expand, and not expand in terms of that we join in one or two delegations or business visits, but to actually have physical presence in the country. The idea is that you want to be closer to your customer, and that always helps. I've got so many cases in point where companies that have got double or triple the growth just because the founder and some of the other people lay an emphasis that we need to be on ground. And it also puts an onus on them, and especially the companies that have the local talent, because nothing beats getting more business than if you've got a local resource that can actually understand the cultural aspect of the business. That always helps. And I think more and more we are witnessing. Earlier, this was the larger companies that came in the first wave. Now the SMEs are coming, and similarly startups are coming who are looking to hire local, be as local as possible, and serve the community from within it.
Great. One question to the whole guys here. What have you noticed in the past 5 years? And I'd like to keep this last question in terms of SMEs. What have you noticed? What has changed in the past 5 years? Of course, from the political standpoint, we hear Modi ji's government saying that we are investing in new startups. We want people to get into entrepreneurial journeys. But from you actually being in the industry, knowing from ins and out, what has changed from, let's say, in 2020 or pre-COVID to now post-COVID and in 2025?
I think one biggest change I have observed, not just observed but experienced myself, is a great confidence and trust that has come into Indian tech and Indian talent and capabilities, right? That's the biggest change. That change itself means huge, because now we have opportunities to collaborate and partner more than just client-vendor relationship. You talk about partnership more. I think that also gives an opportunity to bring and add value. In my honest opinion, that has changed huge. And now that you talk about value, there is obviously more understanding of it. And then there is more, to serve to the need, of course, but at the same time, to co-create. And when I talk about co-create, it's not just about creating in India versus creating in the US alone, but we're talking about solving problems and challenges here.
Okay.
And I think both our countries present huge opportunities out there. So in my honest opinion, believing in this value creation is huge. And I think we must build on that.
Okay.
I think just to add on to what he said, in terms of pre-pandemic and post-pandemic, what we've looked at, one, certainly confidence is sky high. People do understand that we can, the globe is our playground, really. We don't have to stay confined to whatever region we come from. The second thing, that it might be a small thing for some people, but it's an important change that has happened, is that whole emphasis on that if I need to solve a problem, I need to be, right there. Today, you can be anywhere in the world and you can still solve a problem. Yes, as Mayank said, you need to be closer to your customer. You need to be able to understand their needs better. You need for that value to be delivered. But it's customers have become very agnostic to where you're physically based. And that in itself has given a lot of impetus to the small businesses to be able to jump into the fray. So if you're, sitting in a remote corner of India, if you've got the technical chops to deliver a solution to, the largest company on the planet, well, you have been able to do it.
Correct.
And that was that virtual mobility that wasn't there earlier. I think it used to be a lot of challenge convincing somebody that we could, be offshore and still solve things. But that's happened. But then on the reverse side of that has also opened up opportunities for those same people to be on-site. And for them to expand into the US. So that's how I think that ecosystem and that opportunity has grown for everybody.
And I'm sure my next question would continue to the same top point that you have mentioned. How has the collaboration been for Indian companies with the US-based companies over the years?
If I can start with that, I've been doing that almost 25 years plus now.
Okay.
It's always been great. Seriously, I mean, barring a few exceptions that are there everywhere in the world, really, the collaboration, I mean, we have companies in 6 countries right now. And I would still rank, the collaboration I have with my clients in the US as probably number one. Simply because, as I said, there's a level of cultural understanding, if not similarity, understanding of each other. and acceptance of our differences also in certain spheres. And that has been huge. The diaspora has helped a lot. The ecosystem is also now staffed by that diaspora. So it's helped kind of open those doors up which were totally not open for you.
Not open for the Indian companies.
Yeah.
What are the new products that Indian tech companies are bringing to the US? Because whenever we hear about tech, it's always the other way around, that USA is producing new tech like AI, or we say robotic system, and providing it to the whole world. What is, and of course, like, just from a layman's perspective,
So
the back office, or we say offshore, no matter which company it is, right? It's always either Bangalore or Gurgaon. So the people working, the brain working behind all the technologies, always, I would say 80% of it is from India. But from the business standpoint, what is India bringing to the world?
I think the biggest advantage that India brings is the talent. As I said earlier, I mean, there is no piece of technology that will have the Indian hand. So the talent is what's driving everything. Again, maybe India is not at the forefront of the frontier models of AI, but India is going to be one of the biggest consumers of AI.
Okay.
You'll have the role of each and every country sort of defined as to what they're doing in terms of AI, but you'll still need companies who will deploy it at a scale and the speed. That's where the Indian tech will play a big role. And the Indian talent is the largest. So for any country or any company specifically want to scale up at a speed, there is no other playground than India. So India is going to be a critical factor. The previous wars were fought on oil. It's a talent war now. Even with the AI, you still need the digital talent. So that's where India has a big.
Even for the AI to work. Sorry to cut you off.
But again, it's going to be collaborating more.
Correct. And my point was, even for the AI to work, you still need like physical hands and brain to make AI running.
See, problem is we get into this dystopian hooray when we talk about AI. There is like one camp will say all great, one camp will say all bad. But truth always like somewhere in between, right? In past, whenever we've seen any new technology come in, has there been disruption? Yes, there has been disruption, or rather reallocation of the resources, but we move on to the next level of growth. People utilize that time. Your bandwidth is open for far more important work than the mundane jobs that you're doing. So it provides the company great opportunity to reallocate, reoptimize their resources in a much better way. So it's a positive thing, and we're quite bullish about it. How things will.
Right. Looking forward
keep
for
keep in mind one point which I would like to say to the earlier point Steve guys made. The India-US relationship is built on various factors, but there is the umbilical cord that connects between both the countries. That's your diaspora and democracy. So this umbilical cord, irrespective of what's happening in macro or micro level, will always keep these two partners
Connected.
and connected. So there is very, very, Ajit alluded to the cultural affinity and some of the other stuff. But I think these are the two critical factors, and the technology and all the others are the key factors that are driving it now.
Great. You have anything to say, Maulik bhai?
Yeah. So the data is huge. And when I say huge, it means a lot, especially when you talk about AI as well, right? Whatever models you talk about, and how do you bring those models and tune those data sets are really invaluable, right? We talk about volume or velocity or variety of data is huge out there back in the with that, what's happening? The data management practice is coming out big from there. We recently heard Google setting up their
Headquarters.
data center out there in Andhra Pradesh in India. Right. We're looking at data management practice is one of the big outcome of this, which is going to be a big capability which we can possibly bring back to the world, I would rather say. And that's one. Secondly, we have humongous opportunities out there. One example has been talked all the time is digital payment infrastructure, which has been a big
UPI.
That's correct. That's based on digital payment infrastructure.
Right.
That alone has set huge number of, it has acted like a springboard for a lot of startups to come up, especially in BFSI.
Right.
And in retail as well. With that, what has happened, new ideas, new concepts have really come out, which we possibly believe are also applicable to the global world as well. Right? I think we have some huge, initiatives out there which possibly can help and can be brought here in terms of our knowledge and intellectual property as well.
Correct. So, and with the digital payments that you just mentioned, I feel from an external perspective that India gave this child to the world before AI got invented.
Yeah.
And we as Indians around the globe should be proud of it. But why is there no other product
I think
similar to it?
I'll allude to that. I think based on what was done on the digital public infrastructure, the DPI part, which obviously is what the entire payment infrastructure is based on, a lot of Indian companies are moving to an era where they're not just providing services. The services themselves are getting productized, which is you've got your own frameworks, you're building those products, and then you're adding or layering services on top of that. In our own case, I mean, we've got a human capital management product that's come out. We've got a spend tech product that's come out. We're just launching a GRC, a governance, risk, and compliance product. And to the point that is mentioned about AI, there's a complete AI framework that we've built up sitting in India that we are now launching for the world. So you're going to see this increasingly happening right from the smallest of Indian companies to the large ones. Everybody's coming on to that playing field, which has gotten kind of leveled with AI. Yeah. So that is certainly, it's not a trend, it's just, it's a tidal wave that's coming.
So it's just a matter of time for the world to know about
absolutely.
AI will be a great leveler in that.
Oh, it has been. I mean, yeah.
And I'll give you a very funny example. I remember during the COVID time when the entire world was shut, I think we happened to travel to Canada just after the first wave. And you need to show your vaccine certificates, everywhere. What was interesting, all the
Tell me about it.
So in the US and in Canada, everyone needs to carry around this card or piece of paper which had that you've got your first dose. We never had that. We took our first dose and everything was again digital. Imagine doing it at a scale, which was really surprising for people when they saw me showing the QR code just to scan everything. It was virtual. And now imagine they're doing at a scale of India. You're talking about 1.4 billion people.
Exactly.
To multiply that, digital public infrastructure has been a phenomenal success. I mean, that has been taken to various parts of the world. There are different countries which actually take UPI now. And, if anything, every country is quite curious about it, what's happening.
24 now, I think, the last count. Yeah. That's huge.
UPI has emerged as one of the biggest contributor. Not just that, I mean, there are a whole set of companies that have come on top of it. There are various services being offered. So it's been a really, trailblazer moment for the government.
No, and we are proud of it. Like, even me being here in the United States for the past almost 15 years, going through the whole COVID process, we had to literally carry a piece of card around and show it to them. Now it was more like that driver's license or the ID doesn't matter. You need to have a COVID. Yeah. And then my friends and family back in India are like, why you have so many cards with you? We just have everything on our phone, which is I feel is a great phenomena that India has seen. What do you think? Why is India still called as a developing country and not as developed as the United States? And this is going to be my second last question, and then we'll end it up after this.
Well, I think there are a number of parameters when you call a country a developed country, right? There is the mindset element of it. There is the infrastructure element of it. And there's, in general, a population level understanding of your issues and the way that you solve those issues. India is rapidly developing in that sense. There is a lot more to be done. A lot has been done in the past 10 years, I think, 10, 11 years, I think is a huge, huge improvement that we see still. But there is some distance to travel.
Okay.
And at least to the point that you understand that there is that distance to be traveled, then you're making those efforts in different areas, whether it's public health, whether it's digital infrastructure as well, whether it's the quality of service you're getting on your services that the government is providing, citizen services, all of those combined. I think when all of those get to a certain point, yes, I think we can call ourselves developed, but there is some distance to travel for us.
Understood. And we'll end this podcast with this one last question. And it's not a question exactly. It's more of like you giving a suggestion to the first time business owners who would like to put their effort, investments, and all of what they have to the US and global market. One suggestions from each of you.
I think, in my honest opinion, it has to be building relationships and trust, right? And business will happen. But what really has to be built is that continuous relationship building and trust building. And then second, of course, focus on one specific area that you are good at. These two things are very important in my honest opinion. Yeah.
I'll say clarity of intent. What are you coming here for? Are you just coming here for putting an address on your envelope or your website that you are also in US without having? Or is it something that you actually want to enter the market, develop the market, develop those relationships, and work with that? So that clarity of intent, if you're coming to the US market, you need to have that clarity of intent. And that solves quite a lot of things right at the start.
Clear.
I think just to add, they've covered all the points. Just to add one more would be patience. And you go on to a new market, just be patient enough that there will be success, but you need a lot of hard work. And where you are in terms of your growth journey will also define how fast you want to go for the global market or global expansion. We see so many companies, traveling everywhere and being, okay, let me go and set up in US, let me go to Canada, let me go to Middle East or UK. The clarity of thought as to what would be my next frontier where I will get the growth is you take one step at a time. Exponential growth may come in some cases, but you take one step at a time. These guys are sitting here, like Harjeet mentioned, 6 countries. It would have taken years of time.
Yes.
So as long as you're patient in terms of what you want to do, success will be all yours.
Great. And this is from, just to sum up the podcast for all the new business owners and those who'd like to invest in the US market, be good with people, have good relation, right? Keep your minds open and stay patient and trust the industry people that have already flourished their market. So, it was a great talk with you guys, Mayank Bhai, Harjeet Bhai, and Maulik Bhai. It was wonderful talking to you.
Thank you.
Once again, thank you for being at Ambigramy. This was AmbiTalk with your host, Suraj Mehta. Thank you.